Hello, Rama Rama Pupodu. Hope all are in good health, feeling great, wonderful, having a happy and relaxed life. Now let's continue with chapter 44 3 Kasaragod, the next part. Dwarkada's worship of the images went on regularly day after day. The time of his departure came. The day previous to it, he was as usual engaged in his worship, having the murtis spread out on a cloth in front of him. Ramdas was at the time sitting on his asan outside. Kanda, who was a so-called untouchable, which fact Dwarkadas could only know the day before, came to ashram as usual, but this time with a bunch of ripe plantains as a farewell offering to Dwarkadas. He directly came up and was about to place the gift at the feet of Dwarkadas when the latter suddenly flared up and shouted forth, "How dare you come near me? Don't you see that I have put on a sacred cloth and doing puja? Get away from my presence." At these sharp words, Kanda shrank back and quietly, going into a corner, took his seat. Ramdas observed the whole game. Getting up from his place, Ramdas quietly proceeding towards Dwarkadas, and before he could know why Ramdas was coming to him, collected the images and the puja materials by folding up the cloth on which they were placed, and making the whole thing into a sling, with all the force at his command, flung it into the ditch at the right side of the ashram. Dwarkadas was stunned and gazed at Ramdas with looks filled with awe. Ramdas then told him, "Look here, Ramji, your devotions have been taking decidedly a wrong turn. That devotee before you," pointing to Kanda, "came to you with a heart full of love and reverence and was about to offer you a precious gift of fruits. Now you chose to discard him. That means you have discarded the very love of God. For you in future, the living human image should be God. Therefore, get up and prostrate at the feet of Kanda, whom you have wantonly insulted. He is your Ram, God and all. This is the vision that you need. Worshipping brass images and conceiving hatred for man is not devotion. Be quick to repair your gross blunder." Instantly, Dwarkadas got up and going to Kanda fell at his feet. Thereafter, until he left the ashram, he was engaged in repeating God's name and prostrating before everyone, to whatever caste or creed he or she belonged, who visited the ashram. The call from the devotees from Maharashtra and northern India for Ramdas became insistent. At last, he could not resist it. Ram gave him the command to go out and fulfill their wishes. Accordingly, he wrote to Janathan Pant asking him to come to him and fetch him over. The news of Ramdas' intended departure created quite a sensation among the adherents of the ashram. Of them, Krishna Bai was affected most. Till then, she was spending her nights with the children in the house in which she resided. Now she insisted that Ramdas should permit her to stay in the ashram for the nights. Mother Rukmabai, in spite of her ill health, stopped in the ashram, but as regards to Krishna Bai, Ramdas was not willing that she should stop away from her children, and at least in the nights. One evening, as usual, he had to remind her to return to her house. In fact, she used to be much absorbed in the service of the ashram that she would entirely forget to mark the passage of time and to leave the ashram even when darkness of the night was closing upon the world. On this occasion, she was most reluctant to leave for her house. In so many ways, she appealed to him to allow her to remain in the ashram, but in view of her children, he could not agree with her. She left. The following day at about 8 o'clock, a cultivator turned up bringing the news that Krishna Bai was found lying down in a jungle at the top of the hill near the Bhuta Sthana, one of her legs swollen and herself partly unconscious. At once, Ramdas with some others in the ashram ran up to the place. They found her sitting beneath a tree, her clothes all soiled with mud and earth, and one of her legs and feet swollen up to the knee. Ramdas, with the help of the friends, conveyed her to the ashram. He learned from her lips that she had spent the night partly in the outer yard of the ashram and then in the jungle where she was found. The denial on the part of Ramdas in regard to a stay in the ashram had deeply affected her. She said she could not return to her home. The swelling was due to a snake bite, but Krishnabai was perfectly calm, and her face was as radiant as ever, not a shadow of pain marking it. However, by God's grace, she recovered. Among the earnest aspirants who visited the ashram was one named Gunda, a native of Puttur. He had come on leave from Bombay, where he held an employment. At the closing period of his leave, he came to see Ramdas. A brief talk with Ramdas brought about a far reaching transformation in him. He at once abandoned the idea of rejoining his post in Bombay and made up his mind to stick to Ramdas. At his request, Ramdas initiated him with the Ram Mantram. No sooner he repeated the mantram for half an hour than he was so far carried away by the spiritual emotion caused by it that he began to dance in wild ecstasy. Thereafter, he turned his mind and life entirely to the thought of God and service of the ashram. He was a silent man, humble and unobstructive and assiduous. He was simple, pure, and great soul. The day for departure arrived. Ramdas left Kasaragod in Janathan Pant's company, and the railway platform was fully crowded by the devotees of Kasaragod, including Krishna Bai, Mother Rukmabai, and others. That's all, folks. Let's see in the next chapter. Thank you. Bye bye. Rama Rama Pupoda.